I have a beef with birth control most of the time. So in this podcast, I want to share with you the best practices for birth control priming specifically. When when to use it, how to use it, when you should not use it. And if you're in one of those situations where you have to use it because it's just kind of like what your doctor does, or they batch clients, we'll talk about that, then how to make sure you can still get the best outcome possible. All right, so understand that this is not a totally unbiased conversation because I hate birth control personally. All right, I was a crazy person when I had to take birth control. I used to call myself like the Hulk in heels. Hindsight, in my 40s, when I went to functional medicine experts, I learned I'm estrogen dominant. All right. The quote from the functional medicine expert at the time was, "I am so surprised you haven't killed anyone yet." And I was like, what? I'm so calm. But I get fiery, right? And so being estrogen dominant, I don't know. This is what my brilliant functional medicine experts in the group do. So I will tell you what I know, but parts of being estrogen dominant are obviously higher estrogen in certain phases of your cycle and really like quick to anger, like, okay. And I was feeling myself, I'm 48 now, I was feeling myself being like that more. And that's where I started getting my hormones tested again. And this is where I first learned I was estrogen dominant. So it makes sense back a long time ago when I was taking birth control, getting on it made me feel crazy. Okay. So again, what's my beef with birth control? It makes me insane. But this is now about you. But let me just stop there. If you also are like, oh, I totally resonate with that. Okay. So you should not probably be taking birth control for IVF, whether it's with the egg retrieval or the transfer. Probably. I don't know everything about you, but that is a sign that extra estrogen is not helping you. Remember, if it doesn't feel right, it's not. Okay. So here is just an overview of why I feel but birth control is overused in the protocols for IVF and why most people don't use it. Let me go with why people should almost always have birth control. And again, I am putting very vague statements out there because putting together a perfect protocol for somebody is a combination of multiple factors. Okay. But in general, I think of, you're going to need birth control if really high FSH, like I would say 20 or more, really high AMH and follicle count. We need to calm that down. Now, you may not, pending your AMH and follicle count, you may not need it, but that's a time where, if you have PCOS, you have, tons and 30 plus follicles, we're maybe going to need to start with birth control. If you have a shorter cycle, birth control could be one of the priming protocols for you. Shorter cycle to me is less than 25 days, and especially a shorter ovulation period, meaning you're ovulating before like 11 days. Okay. Those are times where, again, I say maybe because you could still lengthen a cycle without birth control. But those would be the times where I would say, that makes sense. And there are times where those criteria don't fit my clients, but I still recommend or say, I agree with the birth control. But I'm just giving you kind of in general how I think about it. And why clinics tend to use, or doctors tend to use birth control so much, from what my experience has been, is one, it's their protocol, right? That's just how they do it. Everyone takes birth control for 2 to 3 weeks. Okay. Do not let that, right? Cookie cutter approach to IVF. I want to kill myself. Okay. The other reason is they batch clients. So they need your egg retrieval to fall on a certain day or a certain week. Again, hate that because that really limits optimizing your IVF. Birth control is very suppressive. So let's go back to my beef with birth control. Birth control can be very suppressive, too suppressive. So what do I mean by that? Birth control shuts down your ovaries. That can be a good thing for many reasons. But if you don't need it and it shuts down your ovaries, well, when it's time for the stimulation drugs, what happens? One, they're still unconscious. And it's like go time. So what does your doctor do? Gives you higher amounts of medication to wake up the ovaries. And of course, that upsets me if they didn't need to be suppressed so much, but to wake up the ovaries. And what I tend to see is really high doses when the follicles are not responding or after more than 2 weeks of birth control. So to me, that's a waste of medication, which is a waste of money. And we're not optimizing our egg retrieval. If you've been listening to me for a second, you know how I feel about high doses. Why I can't stand them is it tends to create really fast growth and really uneven follicles. I say it's like a couple follicles are like, yeah, let's go. And they like shoot off and they're like, like roid rage. And then a bunch of follicles are like, huh? And totally frozen because they're like, what just happened to us? And so you get these roid ragers and you get these frozen follicles. It's just a mess. Your follicles are really uneven. You got, when you look at the last day of your trigger shot, you're from 20s all the way down to 12s. And it's just, no. That's what I tend to see happen when people are oversuppressed, typically with birth control. Okay, so you are using birth control. What are the best practices for it? Well, one, have conversations with your doctor. Why am I on it? And what are you looking for? So unless it's we batch clients or that's just our protocol, I have heard people, or doctors say, well, it's to suppress your ovaries or it's to help with even follicle count or follicular growth, It's to help with, of course, we want nice and even follicular growth. Why did you pick birth control over, I'm going to give you 3 other options, no priming. They may say it causes uneven growth. I could definitely argue that, but it just depends. An igestin, which is a progesterone-based birth control, or just estrogen. Okay. So why not any of those 3? That could be the question. And again, pending your individual biology, I would tell you why you should have one over the other. But I'm just, in general, I don't know why they're prescribing birth control for you because I don't know your case. So these would be my questions. And then it would be, okay, so for how long am I going to be on it? If they mention longer than 14 days, I want you to follow up with, what are we hoping to accomplish in 14 days? We kind of got through that. Okay. Could we do a check at 14 days and see where we're at? I'm guessing what they're looking for is small follicles, right? All below 10 millimeters, all small and even. They're looking for low estrogen, not too low, but like under 80, hopefully above like 40, like 40 to 80 is good. Low FSH, right? Around under 10. So let's say that those are some of the criteria. Okay. So if that's what you're looking for, can I do a suppression? Can I do a baseline ultrasound? I wouldn't say a suppression check, but you could. But can I do a test at day 13, to see, are we where we want to be, or would it benefit me to continue a little bit longer? Overall, your doctor should have a reason for the birth control and a goal, an objective goal, not just we want to, suppress the ovaries and even up the follicles a bit. Okay, but what exactly are you looking for? We should be able to measure it. They should want a certain measurement of things. And then, okay, can we check to see if I need it that last week? This is, again, assuming they're not batching clients, and then you'd really have no choice. Another great practice for any kind of priming protocol, but especially with the pill, is kind of what I just said to do, but for a different reason. If your doctor has goals like, hey, we need to bring your FSH down under 10, and let's say that they say, so go on the pill for 14 days. Get those checks a couple days before day 12 or 13 to make sure you're where they want you to be and you've gotten to your goal before getting off. Because they assume, and at day 14, then you get off of birth control and we're not below 10 FSH, if that's what they're going for, you got off birth control, and then you're going to get your period. And then by the time you realize it's cycle day 1, you've gotten your period and it's too late to do anything. So it's always best practices to kind of, to ask to get that check a couple days before, so we know we've gotten to where we want to be before getting off of it. All right, so that was my beef and best practices for when you are being told you need to take birth control for priming before an egg retrieval. Before we leave, you must head over to my new website, tashablasi.com, and take the quiz, Your IVF Persona. Because once you take the quiz, it's a few questions, you will get resources for your very next step in IVF. I'm so excited that we finally released this. And these resources are what people in the past had paid for to get access to. And I am delivering them for free to you. And again, they are customized based on which IVF persona you are. So definitely check that out, tashablasi.com. Well, that was our uncovering for the day. If you have a feeling that your IVF protocols or strategies could use a second opinion, start with our website, tashablasi.com, for resources and even a free discovery call where we can learn about your specific IVF needs and see how we can help.